Welcome to All Our Parts, where all of it is brought to the table. The messy, the joyful, the mundane, and everything in between. Where we talk about that terrible friendship breakup, where we talk about how we've lost ourselves and how we've come back to ourselves. This is the show that will offer strategy, a laugh, and maybe a cry, but you'll leave feeling like you can make the steps towards being your most authentic self. Y'all, this episode is so heartfelt. I am so proud of the conversation that Kellyn and I were able to cultivate. This is for anyone that is just really struggling and or trying to figure out how to navigate letting people go with love. While we center this conversation around friendships and navigating the transition from college to, quote unquote, the real adult world, this is truly for anybody who is sitting through figuring out how to transition their relationships. Kellyn, this was such an amazing conversation. I am so excited to share it with the world, and I am so excited for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, Kellyn. Thank you so much for joining All Our Parts. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
Just to start, tell us just a little bit about what you do and, who you are.
Yeah. I'm calling myself a relationship guide. I think Coach has this sort of description that's like you're telling people what to do. And so much of what I do is like guiding people to what's best for them. Like I'm always like, I have no idea what's best for you. So really at the end of the day, I'm really helping people just have healthier, happier relationships, which is the best thing ever. I'm like, it just feels like such an honor to help people move through that. And it's something that I always think we were just never taught, right? It's like I'm offering people tools that they were never taught and that every single person needs.
Yes, I don't think we're ever really taught how to navigate friendships as adults. I mean, when we're younger, we see them in school, we go in the playground together, plan a sleepover, invite the whole class, and then you turn 21, 22, you leave college. You don't have that built-in time set, you don't have that community anymore. And so what does it look like to see people, to interact with people, to maintain those relationships outside of very fixed settings? And so yeah, it's hard to think everyone hits friendship bumps in the road.
For sure. Even in hearing you say, like as a little kid, it's like, oh, you're having the birthday party and you're inviting some people. And I even think that there's drama or conflict, right? In that, right? We're not like our parents aren't taught. And if we don't take it upon ourselves to learn, then it's just going to get passed on. How do we deal when we're like, we don't want to invite that person to the birthday party and then they get left out? And what does that look like? And it just carries on. It's like that same stuff from elementary school is what you're facing when you're 25 or 35 or just an adult, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think we have been taught to be conflict avoidant. And thinking about the classroom dynamic, the teacher always says, bring enough cupcakes for everybody, bring enough invitations for everybody. And it's like, you don't want everybody. Like, even as a kid, there are people that you might not vibe with, that they're not vibing with you, and you still have to make sure they have a cupcake. Even Valentine's Day, like everyone in the little like Valentine's Day generic cards with the very gross candy that's always attached to them. um, yeah, it's like we're never taught how to move through conflict, instead we're like, okay, how do we make the most cohesive space for everyone? And as we've learned in friendships and even in friendship breakups, it doesn't always like pan out that way. And I think that's why it feels like such a moral failing in friendship breakups when we can't seem to find the cohesion or find the flow.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I think what you just said is really important. it's not even that we don't know how to address the conflict. It's that we're not even like sitting with the conflict most of the time, right? Most of the time we're like, this person upset me and that's the fact and that's it. And that's the loop that we stay stuck on, right? This friendship is failing, or we're arguing, or we're not getting along, or they didn't invite me somewhere, or there's conflict, there's a pull, right? And in the sitting with it, right? Looking at it and being like, what is this about? That's where the work is, right? And most of us are going 1,000 miles per hour. We're not taking the time to process. What we're doing instead is jumping to confirmation bias, right? Jumping to our other friends to be like, hey, can you believe that they did this? Wasn't it terrible? And they're like, yeah, that was terrible. How could they do that? And you're like, great, moving on. And then you go on TikTok and a video is served to you with the exact scenario, exactly what you're going through with your friend. And you're like, great, I'm in the right and they're in the wrong. And I'm I'm so right. And we're not kind of processing through it on our own and getting to a place where we're thinking really consciously about, what do I want the result to be here? Do I want to end this friendship? Do I want to have a really tough conversation? Do I not want to have a tough conversation right now? Maybe I just want to take space. That's sort of where all the juice is, right? That's where all the work is.
Yeah, you just jog a memory of a friendship breakup that I navigated post undergrad. We were very like, even speaking to that fixed setting and everything you just said. We were really close. We were, we always spent time together. And then she was a year ahead of me, and so when I graduated, she like came to my graduation. Well, let me rewind. So my final year of being an undergrad, we kind of just were starting to phase out. And I don't think the other person knew how to say anything because we lived in close proximity. And the expectation was that we grew together. And so eventually I would, try and reach out and make plans with her. And she just like would flake, or she'd say, not feeling up to it. And then would make plans with somebody else. And then I'd be like, is it me? Like, is this a go? I was leaning into the confirmation bias, but then I also was like, okay, I'm going to pump the brakes and allow myself to give this person some grace. And then when it came up to my graduation, she like showed up to the graduation, but didn't like say goodbye to me, which was so bizarre. And so it's, as like time went on, I really worked to try and not lean into that confirmation bias, but ultimately her not wanting to make amends or say goodbye in that moment was like ultimately the end of the friendship. And I thought, man, if I just keep pulling and keep pulling and keep pulling and not leaning into the very clear signs that are there, um that were there, I was like, it took me like a year after to be like, oh, this friendship's over. And to make peace with that was its own thing, because it's a ghosting. And yeah, but to even talk like, yes, we don't want to lean into that confirmation bias, and sometimes the signs are like they're like, hello, they're like a yellow sign, it's flashing, it's starting to make noise. And I don't think we know. It's hard to navigate which is which. Again, it all goes back to, we were never really taught what the green flags of adult friendships were. We always learn attachment theory from adolescence with parents, but we never really discuss attachment theory from the sense of, okay, what are some green flags in friendships as you get older? Like, how does that continue to play out?
Yeah. I think, oh man, you said so many things. My brain is like, oh, where should we go? I love this. Um, I think just to first call out and say, when a friendship dynamic shifts in the way that you just described, it's so unbelievably upsetting, disruptive, because friendships are like our safe space. The things that we share with friends, the experiences that we have with friends, they are so unlike any other relationship that we have. It's different than what we share with our parents, obviously. It's obviously so much different than what we share with our partners. It's, I think, where we share most of our inner dialogue. And I think it's really interesting to see when you feel the emotional shift. You see something happening the way you're describing when you're watching, oh, this something's off here, right? It's like your intuition is sort of telling you there's been a glitch in the matrix, right? What
Hmm.
was moving, or like a slow moving river, is suddenly, a little bit more disruptive, and it feels out of place. And then, like you said, you see something happen and you're like, yep, I was true. And all of this is happening without conversation with another person. So it's really just your own thoughts about the relationship, right? And then what you think is happening. And unless you have that conversation, you really can't know. I do think, as as much as you can tune into your intuition, I always want to tell people to do so, but also at the same time, you have to watch when your brain is making up stories, because our
Hmm.
brains are so dramatic.
Hmm.
And our relationships with other people are truly our thoughts about them and their thoughts about us, and that's the really simple version of it.
Yeah,
um so when those breakups are happening, um like I said, it can just be so disruptive. And then,
for sure.
as far as you were asking about green flags in friendship, right? And I think there's pillars. I always like to look at things with pillars, like communication and fun, and mutual respect and understanding. And there's something really to be said about having friendships where you can communicate openly, and it doesn't need to mean that the friendship has gone awry, right? I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned in my friendships, where there is conflict. Like, there certainly is something that is disruptive, and that you're able to bring it to the table and say, hey, I noticed this shift. Can we talk about this? And have the other person meet you with compassion and understanding, and be like, oh my gosh, why are you thinking that? Or did it, just having the conversation truly, um, is one of the most important things in friendship, because at the end of the day, we are humans and we are going to have disagreements, and our inner children are running the show. And they're going to be like, this feels uncomfortable, or this feels weird, or this feels combative. So I think the biggest thing is being able to have uncomfortable conversations with your friends about the friendship. That to me is like one of the biggest green flags ever.
A relationship assessment, a DTRing, whatever we want to name it, it is so valuable to be able to say, where is the like what are we doing? Where's this friendship going? And it's so sad that sometimes people think that's like too serious within friendship, is to be like, what are we doing here? What's the vibe? Is this a situationship? Are we, long distance, low communication, low commitment? And it's like, actually, no, it's actually very helpful for the both of us to understand what kind of energy we are investing in
Mm.
this relationship, because friendships within any umbrella, whether they're, catch up, go to a bar, go to play games, or really deep intimate ones, they both require an energetic transaction. And so, at least for me, I like to understand what energetic transaction I'm getting into, because there's only so many hours in the day and there is only so much to be putting out. And to your point, I think in any umbrella of friendship, mutual respect has to be there.
For sure. I love that you said energetic exchange. I'm like, yes, it is that, right? And I often think it's so funny. We always set goals, right? As a society, I think a lot of people are like, I'm setting goals. I want to lose 10 pounds. I'm setting goals. I want a promotion. And we don't set goals in friendship or a relationship. And I'm like, it's a really interesting thing that I think hasn't quite caught on yet. But it's really about intent, being intentional, right? What do I have to offer to this friendship? What, like you said, is the energetic exchange here? And a lot of that to me is moving forward and adapting, moving forward and adapting. Because I think a lot of times we're all shifting and evolving, right? All the time. And there are times in my friendship where I started the friendship and was like, great, I'm your going out friend. I'm this person. And then, things evolved in my life. And I'm like, now I'm very focused on other things. So if you want to go on a hike, now I'm that person for you. But I'm probably not going to be the person that is going out on a Tuesday night, and that's
Mhm.
okay. That doesn't mean I like you less. It doesn't mean I want to spend less time with you. It just means like my internal dynamic has shifted and my focus has shifted. So, you know, I think what you're getting us to is also, taking inventory of ourselves. Like,
Mhm.
what can I offer in this friendship right now? What do I want this friendship to look like?
Mhm.
And that's a huge part of healthy friendships in my eyes.
Yeah. I mean, you just even spoke to the idea of how much our relationship to ourselves does impact the relationship that we have with other people. As somebody who has explored like sober curiosity and can go through periods where drinking like isn't for me, it can sometimes throw the dynamic off because I'm like, I've been like in a Shirley Temple era right now. Like it's just so fun. I'm like, yes, this like hits exactly what I'm looking for, but I haven't really been a huge fan of alcohol lately. And so sometimes I'll be out with my friends, they're like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just chilling, but I also maybe need to, you just pointed something out for me is like maybe going out isn't like for me right now. And so even just being able to be upfront with that and saying, I'd love to get coffee with you, or I'd love to let's just go to lunch, or let's go for a walk. I have been like posing the idea of ice cream because that everyone loves ice cream.
So
There's even
summer, it's like who doesn't want to do that?
there's dairy free options so in the city, so no one's left out, no one is feeling, out of place, but just finding those very mutual like, okay, everyone will enjoy this, and just while also being honest about the fact that like I'm not really partying right now. Like I'm not really drinking right now, and that's okay. And there's no force or push for you to meet me there, but I need to be honest about where I am right
Yeah.
now.
I would love to spend time on this a little bit because I think the alcohol in general is a really interesting thing in our society as far as bonding and friendships. This to me
Mhm.
goes back to what you're saying in the beginning. It's like we're in the beginning of friendships, we're in elementary school, and then we evolve to high school, and then we evolve to college. And college in the US is so much revolving around alcohol, right? It's like if you can do the longest keg stand, you're the coolest person at the party. And we're all championing that, right? Maybe that has shifted since I've been in college, but I think it's a big part. And then after we graduate, so much of our friendships and interactions do end up being like, where are we going? What are we doing? We're going out to the bar, we're meeting more people. We still want to be in that community and connection. And I think, especially as like the sober curious movement is growing and growing and growing, I stopped drinking about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Um, and I was really nervous when that happened. I'm like, how is this going to affect my friendships and going out, and what does that look like? At least for me, my sober journey was very much about like, this isn't serving me. I'm not enjoying this. So I'm okay to be around it. I think there are, of course, a ton of people that are like, you know, are alcoholics, or they are
Mhm.
very much like, I don't want to be in a bar setting. And then when you start to pull away from that, and then a bunch of other friends don't, that is like I think a huge breaking off point for a lot of friendships. Have you seen that as you've been working with people?
Oh, for sure. I mean, and thinking about the college dynamic, freshman, like I'm thinking about my freshman welcome week where the only thing we all could do together because we didn't know each other was go out. go out, grab a drink, go to a frat party, and because we have nothing else to talk about, and we also don't know how to break that ice of discomfort, that we don't know each other, that we are strangers. And so rather than sitting and maybe playing a card game and maybe getting to know one another, we're like, oh no, let's go get some liquid courage, and then we're going to get to know the wildest part of each other in this very new setting. And I was, as someone who has been avoidant of intimacy in their own relationships, like partying was very much my scene in undergrad. I was like, this is like my safe space. Like, there is a very huge barrier between you and me, and I can be as fun as I want to be. I can put on the mirror. And then as I've gotten older and as I've recognized the value in intimacy in any capacity, it's been like, actually, I don't want to be bumped up, sweaty beside a bunch of strangers for 3 hours. And even a really good friend of mine, that our friendship in undergrad started out, we were in very mutual spaces, but we always went out together. We were partying. And so we always lived very close to one another. And so a lot of our time would be, let's go out, let's go out, let's go out. But we also have a much deeper friendship than that. And so it's been nice to segue our friendship into, let's go to happy hour, let's go to dinner. Hey, bed by 10, great. Do you want to do this league sport with me? And it's been so cool to watch our friendship evolve outside of the party space. But alcohol is a true, it's make or break a lot of times, but it also, I think, it highlights where you want to be and where you don't want to be.
So
Like,
true. Oh my gosh. Yes.
if I am if I gotta pregame it, I might not need to go. And that's, I'm like, I think maybe I actually don't want to go. And then rather than being honest with myself and saying, actually, I don't want to go, I'm like, you know what? I'll work myself up to it. I'll get the courage. I'll get, all of the energy from, a vodka cran or whatever, and go to this event when actually I don't want to sit with the fact that I don't want to be around some people, or I just don't want to be in that place. And again, that avoidance, it all comes back to that avoidance of the discomfort, avoidance of the
Mhm.
conflict that might come up because we are uncertain of how to navigate it or what that rupture will look like.
Oh my gosh, 100%. That everything that you said is just so spot on, right? I think it's such a difficult thing to manage because it's just it's just the dynamic of and how much we're affected by our friend group, right? Is it the 5 people you hang out with or the 3 people you hang out with that you're the most like? So when something starts to shift, it is so scary. And usually it's such a personal thing. And I think to what you're saying, like when I stopped drinking, it allowed me to show up in such a different way because I was using alcohol to nurture my discomfort and my social anxiety and all of these things. So as soon as I took that blanket away, I just showed up in such a different way and I was forced to because I still wanted to be social and I still wanted to be around
Mhm.
people and it allowed me just to connect in such a different way. And I think what you're saying, especially about like, oh my gosh, do I need to drink a vodka cranberry to go to this event? It's such a good indicator of like if you need to numb yourself through something, maybe it's just not your thing anymore. And that's such a great thing to acknowledge and recognize.
Yeah, for sure. It's almost freeing. It's like, do I choose to be myself, or do I choose to be this version that I know is digestible and compatible with any given scenario? And when we are in that journey of finding ourselves and finding who we are, it's also really hard, I think, to accept how much we've changed or what has changed about us. Because I enjoyed a good party, and then to wake up one day and be like, oh, actually, this doesn't even align with who I am or where I am. It's like, oh, grieving the change of that loss, but then I get to allow myself to expand and to be open to other opportunities and other ways like to connect with people. And so when we are, I mean, when we're saying no, we're ultimately choosing ourselves. When we're choosing to show up as ourselves, we are choosing ourselves and allowing ourselves to choose the relationships that are, in tandem with who we are.
Yeah. I think the grief part of this is enormous, really. I think the realizing that there is a shift, like you're like, oh, this isn't fit anymore, or I'm not doing, the same thing that I used to do. And you start to pull away from the group. It really is that primal brain that kicks in, and you're like, oh my gosh, my entire group is going that way, and now suddenly I'm going this way, and it's like I'm gonna die out here. That's really what is going on internally, right? That's what our brains are telling us. Like, I'm off on
Mhm.
my own. I have to go fend for myself and pick the berries by myself. That's horrifying. But and there is such grief in that, because I also think what we're grieving is like all these amazing memories and fun times. Like you said, like how fun was it at the bar and going to football games and doing all the things together? That was amazing. And I think in holding on to those memories, our brains are sort of realizing, hey, that chapter is closing. Um, and there's a lot of sadness in that. I'm thinking about a lot of my friends, especially the ones that I grew up with. They started getting married and having kids, and my life went in a different direction where I was still going out, whether or not I was drinking or not, but I was still going out and I was traveling, and I didn't exactly have those friends to do those things with. And it was, for me, it was a very much just acknowledging that that's there and not really making it mean that the friendship's over or that it went wrong. And sometimes it does mean that, that the friendship is over. But I think what we're both getting at is this sort of like outgrowing friendship, which is such I can't, I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this, because I think when we talk about outgrowing friendship, it feels like someone's stuck and someone's left behind, and I don't necessarily think that that's the right narrative. Like when I think of outgrowing, I think of, oh, you're getting put into a different pot. And there's sort of a judgment to the rest of the people or the rest of the plants, if we're talking plant analogies, that are still in the pots. It doesn't mean that they're growing less. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that their growth is stunted. It just means that they're probably in an environment where they're good. They don't need to shift, or they don't need a smaller pot or a bigger pot or more sunlight or whatever it is.
You literally just read my mind because that was the exact direction that I was gonna go. We don't shame the plants like being, oh my gosh, you need to fit in this pot. Like, you need to grow in this pot. I'm going to keep watering you in this pot. Like, we don't even work that if you're into gardening, if you're into, seeing something grow, you never expect it to always grow in the same place. And yet with friendship, it is our own minds as people, we have put it in this very comfortable box that we can digest it in, and we say, this is where you are, this is what our friendship looks like, this is what it is. And then if it changes and I don't know, then that's disruptive, and I have to deal with that grief and that loss. And instead of doing that, I'm just going to keep it in this box. And it's like, there's not anything else really that we expect to stay the same. Like, even when thinking about moving, we don't always intend to live in the same place. Like, none of us, I don't know many people that still live in their childhood home. Like, I'd be really impressed, but I don't know many people that do. Even jobs, like, we don't expect to be in a sales role forever, or expect to, work in retail forever, or whatever the case may be. We don't box ourselves into these specific things, but when it comes to friendship, we're like, okay, I'm going to hold on to this so tightly so that I don't have to figure out what it means for this to change.
Yeah. Oh, figuring out what this means. That's the, oh my gosh, that's the heart of it, I think. And we give it meaning, right? I think a lot of people feel, because thoughts feel so true and they're so automatic, it just feels like fact. So often it feels like, yeah, this is just it. The friendship ended. It's over. There was a disconnect. There was a fallout. And I think in our society, and just as I'm working with people, as much as I can offer to rewrite this idea of failure for people, I want to. I think in when we talk about divorce, when we talk about friendship
Mm.
breakups, our society says, oh, you divorced, you failed. You did something wrong, right? Oh, you had a friendship breakup, you're still not friends with that person that you were friends with in 8th grade, something went wrong. Or, oh,
Yeah.
you had a friend that kind of came in and out of your life quickly. Oh, then wow, something, why are you moving through friends so quickly? What's wrong with you? Or what's wrong with them? Or what happened? There's always like a what happened. And sometimes the what happened doesn't need to be drama filled. Sometimes it's just what
Yeah.
happened is that someone evolved and moved to a new pot, and we had a lot of fun together and we served each other in that moment, and then we separated. I think there's a lot
Yeah.
of drama surrounding friendship breakups, and I don't necessarily think that it needs to always be that something went terribly wrong.
Mm. Why do you think we view it as a failure?
I think just so many. Society is the short answer. Society. Society tells us that if we don't keep our relationships forever, if if they are just stay the same, then you're doing right. I think the best way to explain it, I do think, is in the lens of like marriage and divorce. um to me, I'm like, if you're getting divorced, how, it's a hard thing, it's an unbelievably difficult thing to go through depending on obviously the situation, but also, shouldn't you be honored and validated for recognizing this isn't working, this is stunting my growth, this is upsetting me emotionally, this is putting me in a vulnerable position? um, there's so much narrative around, oh, she has her third divorce. I remember seeing when Taylor Swift started dating the football player, his name is escaping me.
Travis
Travis,
Kelsey.
yes, Travis. When they started dating, I was randomly scrolling on Facebook and there was a clip and somebody said, oh, Travis, like, why do you think people are so excited about the two of you? And he said something like, I think we're really grounded people. We're really people that care about relationships, and she's such a person that, that people really look up to for relationships. And the first comment with like the most likes on it was like, "Oh, people are looking up to her for relationships. She's been in like 10 relationships." And I'm like, that's wild to me that people have that narrative, but I understand it. I understand what they're thinking, right? There's this thinking of, oh, if you're dating around, you're there's something wrong with you. Oh, you can't keep somebody. When I'm like, gosh, dating around, how else would you learn about yourself and evolve and grow? Every relationship we're in is a mirror, is an opportunity for us to look at something and to grow and learn more about ourselves. We just can't do it in isolation. This is why, to me, relationships are so valuable and important, because I think when we had first talked, you had mentioned we live in such an individualistic society, and it's just, the reality is like we have to do this together, and we're kind of um helping each other evolve. And sometimes I think, oh my gosh, what is she supposed to do, just date one person and be like, oh, that's it? Our relationships are always teaching us something, and obviously I'm talking about this in the lens of romantic relationships, but it's the same with friendship. It's
Hmm.
not like we're trying to run through a million people and pick out the best one and be like, "Oh, that friendship didn't work. Nope, I'm looking for the best friend ever." And it's not about just like dropping people or using people. It's just about moving through life and getting to know people and seeing what fits and hopefully causing as little harm as you can and and going through life that way.
Yeah. I feel like we have like another episode on marriage. I was about to tail into that, but I'm like, I'll save that for another
Save
day.
it.
But yeah, I think even as we go through these friendships, and it's like the moral high ground is you have friendships since you were two. Oh, we've been friends forever, and they've seen me grow through all these seasons and phases, and it's like that's great. And I was talking like to somebody the other day, and I was like, I don't know what I would talk about with people from elementary school. Like that was so long ago. What we had in common was what we ate for lunch and like our favorite subject. Like that's so different than where I am now. And so we often, I think it's a, maybe it's a very Western idea, like the idea of building something, the idea of it started from its ground roots and that we put in the work to build it and get it to where it needs to be versus why not just meet people where you are in the same time that you are there, in that place. It's like we can have these friendships and we can maintain them in, this capacity of what they look like, whether in middle school or elementary school. But what if we just allowed ourselves this space to meet friends that are in alignment with where we are right now, regardless of when that time is?
Oh my gosh, I hope people just like hear what you just said because that's it. It's just to me the true root of all relationships, friendship and otherwise is letting people be exactly who they are in the moment, exactly where they are. It gives you freedom, it gives them freedom, and it's we talk so much I think in our society about like being authentic, being our authentic self. To allow other people to be who they authentically are allows you to be who you authentically are, and that's the rhythm, right? It's just that's the beauty of it, I think.
Yeah.
Another thing that you just said that I think is really important to tune into is this idea of like friendship from elementary or middle school. I actually feel so lucky that I actually have three friends from, I would say, elementary school, one middle school. There's four of us. So we have had over a 20-year friendship at this point. And I just want to say for people that I think it is idealized, right? It's like, oh my gosh, how amazing is that? And what do you guys also still have in common? Because we, we,
Yes.
when we met, it was, oh my gosh, I have a crush on this boy. And they were like, so do I. And that was our middle school experience. I just want to say that what while we do have this beautiful friendship that I'm so unbelievably thankful for, what people aren't seeing is the trajectory of that friendship. I actually think um, these friends, although I have been friends with them for a really long time, I don't think there were parts in high school or middle school where like they were my absolute best friend and that we were calling each other every day. We were always kind of friends throughout different phases,
Yeah.
right? And like during college, it wasn't like I'm going to their college and they're coming to mine. It was, we just moved in and out in such a smooth
Mhm.
way. It doesn't mean that we were attached at the hip every single second on this journey. I think there were just ebbs and flows in the relationship. And there were times where we did argue and I thought, hey, maybe this friendship is not forever and it's time to let this go because there's a lot of drama and there was distance and then there was closeness and here we are today and we are still friends and they are at very different life stages and two of them are across the country and one of them is actually 20 minutes away from me and I don't even see her that often. But at the end of the day, it's like the friendship is there because there are roots that are so grounded, that are so deeply grounded. And we also have very much I'm sort of calling this like an invisible link where it's like our lives are very different, right? But we also have that sort of playfulness that like tie us all together, where we'll be like, what are we wearing right now to go out? Or like whether it's fashion or it's just sort of something outside of our everyday lives of like dating or their husbands or their babies or career or whatever. It's like the playfulness of the relationship that I can text them and be like, "Oh my gosh, did everyone see this movie? It's very weird. Like we like the same kind of pop culture or whatever it is." And I could probably have an entire podcast episode about like finding that invisible link because it's the playfulness. It's like being able to
Hmm.
just talk to a friend about nothing. And
Mm,
I'm like, there's weight to kind of that.
absolutely. I'm like mentally recording this, and it you just spoke to something that I have never been able to put into words, is the trajectory of friendship. Is the Just because it looks like this today, it does not mean it always looked like that. And just this past weekend, I literally flew to Charlotte for my friend's like wedding reception. I hadn't seen her in 5 years. We like maintain our communication mostly through Instagram. I've known her though for almost like 12, 13 years. And it's that talk being a we talk about like nothing, in the sense we catch up, we share like the big milestones in each other's lives. And it's again, it's so deeply rooted in uh, something that cannot be described or explained. And she's been international for the last couple of years, so knowing that there was an opportunity to celebrate her and see her, I was like, yes, I will be there. I will hop on a plane if I need to. Uh, it also, I mean, and then it all just ties together and speaks to how special friendship can be, how special friendship of any capacity, of any within in any umbrella, they're all special and so valuable in so many ways.
I love that. I think when you were moving through that, when you saw them, were you like, "Oh, this is different?" Or did you have, cuz sometimes when I'm in those situation, I'm both thinking, "Oh my god, this is so different," and "Oh my god, this is so the same. We have that same bond and same connection." Did you feel that?
Oh my goodness, it was still the same bond, again, so deeply rooted in something that isn't material or like external. I like saw her and I was like, it felt like I saw her yesterday, and it was just so special to be able to celebrate her, and to know that it is so beautiful to have friendships that have seen you through seasons. And while, when we worked together, and because we were camp counselors together and we went through that experience together, our friendship looked very different then than it does now. Now we're both adults. Now we're both in committed relationships, and we're both navigating our own lives. And so, of course, the priorities like shift, but being able to still celebrate one another is such a gift.
Oh, it really is. And I think what you're acknowledging too is just that there are relationships just evolve as they do. They evolve in a way that I think the distance, I want to like acknowledge the distance for a little because I think that to me in my friendship breakups or things that have come between me and friends, it's always been distance, both physically and emotional distance, right? And I think the emotional distance, what I've learned over time is not a bad thing. Sometimes giving a friend space is the most loving thing you can do. I think where it goes wrong is when, sort of what you were talking about earlier, is that when there's like a clear conflict, something maybe has gone wrong, or there's been like, you go out and you have a disagreement, and then after that, the wind starts to shift. I
Yeah.
think there's that, right? And then there's also sort of just like an unspoken, hey, things have changed here and this is starting to look different. So, um space is not necessarily a bad thing, and I think space is probably the thing that allowed me to have these friendships for so long, to build this everlasting friendship with certain people. And I like I said, there have been really turbulent times within this friendship where I thought, hey, this, it's too much drama. This isn't going to work. Going back to my comment about drama, but it all shook out. It all unfolded.
Yeah. And we as people get to say, okay, this is too much. like we get to tap out, we get to preserve ourselves, and just to kind of round out this amazing like I'm mind blown. This amazing conversation. It ultimately, we do get to decide when enough is enough, when it becomes dramatic, when it becomes all consuming, even when it becomes mentally consuming, when it just becomes much more challenging to preserve the relationship than to call the relationship quits. It We give each other both, like, you give both parties the space to say, we did the best we can, we did the best we could, wish you well, and then move on. And again, the failing piece, the fear of change, the fear of the unknown, all of these things are the reasons, I think, as well as other reasons we maybe didn't even get to, of why they become so turbulent and why they just feel so challenging. It's like, what if we just allowed both of us the grace to say, I wish you the best, and it's okay that it is not in our friendship.
Yeah. There is something so important about, this is something that a phrase that I use when I'm coaching, but cleaning up your thoughts about somebody. I think when we are in conflict or when something disrupts the friendship, there is a lot of negativity. Why is she doing that? I don't understand this. I don't understand that. She's being this way. And again, it's all opinion. It's all probably emotionally driven. And I think our job is to sit with those feelings, to process through that. Those are ours to feel and ours to own, and to acknowledge that we can't control other people. And once you clean up those thoughts and you're able to say, hey, this person, here's the other side of this coin. I love this person. I've had so much fun with them. I appreciate them for this. When kind of turn on the gratitude side of things, or the lighter side of things. And this is such a process to go through, all the emotions that come up with this. But when you can get to that place, and still you can say goodbye to a friend, but loving them from afar is such a beautiful thing. I have some friendships right now of people that I am loving from afar. And as we were setting up planning for this podcast, I thought about it, and I'm like, I really do love those people, and I really do wish them the best. And I
Yeah.
think our bodies don't allow us to lie to ourselves. Like, if you're like, yeah, I wish them well, like, whatever. There's probably still some resentment or some disappointment that needs to be felt. But when you can get to that place and be like, gosh, I love that person, I'm so thankful that they came into my life, it's a different feeling and a different experience. And I think anybody can get there.
Yeah, it's allowing yourself the space to move through the emotions, the feelings of abandonment, feeling of resentment, feeling of frustration, anger, the feeling of grief, loss, sadness, and then I mean, I very much agree, there are like friendships that I don't have anymore, that I am very much loving them from afar. And even when I think about, oh, do I like reach out to this person and let them know, it's like, no, I don't need to. Like, I am in a space and I am at peace to be able to say, I loved the friendship for what it was and the lessons that it taught, and I do wish them the best from over here. And that level of acceptance is such a peaceful place to be in. It's also giving yourself that permission to feel the very uncomfortable feelings that come with the end of a friendship.
Oh, 100%. I co-sign on everything that you just said. It is about finding peace within, the dynamic.
Yeah. I know we could probably go in for another 3 days,
For
but
sure.
it's been so amazing talking to you. I've learned so much from you, and I cannot wait for your show. I cannot wait for everything. And definitely thank you so much for taking the time out.
Of course, this was such I knew when we met that this conversation would just flow. I think we covered so many great topics and things that people really feel and experience. So I'm so thankful to have you have this conversation with you, and looking forward to it seems like we have so much to talk about. So until the next time.
Yes, till the next time.